Hey everyone. In today's episode, we're going to be exploring the Azathoth expansion, and more specifically, how does it best get used or not used by the Windwalker faction in Cthulhu Wars. Alright everyone, so you guys know from the last video that I really love Windwalker. And so let's just talk a little bit about Azathoth. Azathoth is a great expansion. I've now done 3 videos, I think, specifically regarding Azathoth expansion, and I really like it. It's got something for everybody's playstyle. Windwalker, as we go through it, I think it actually has a bit more that can be used by the faction for its playstyle, mostly because Windwalker, its primary way of winning should be rituals, but it does have strong combat game. So if you see the right target, you may be able to just sweep in and devastate with your armies. As always in Cthulhu Wars, your game, how you plan in the beginning and how it actually turns out, 2 very different things. So Windwalker is better able to react than some of the other factions. With Azathoth, we have 3 primary components that can be added to your game, and you really have pieces and parts. You don't need to add all of it all at once, and nor should you probably add all of it all at once. Let's talk about the 3 components. 1 is spell books, 1 is the neutral monsters, and 1 is the independent great old one, Azathoth himself. So first of all, let's talk about the spell books just a little bit. All right, so let's look. Mao Ceremony. Mao Ceremony, it says, at the end of Gather Power, after the minimum power rule, but before determined first player, you may choose to eliminate 1 or more of your own cultists, gaining 1 power for each. Now, this is particularly powerful when combined with the Windwalker spellbook Cannibalism. Cannibalism says, after all battle results have been applied and 1 or more enemy units were killed, place a Wendigo or Acolyte from your pool in the battle area. You may do this even if you were not involved in the battle. So, if you were expecting to have a lot of combat in the following turn, converting your cultists into power during the Gather Power phase gives you a bunch of power. You can use that power to just immediately resummon the cultists if you need to. So it's not you're not costing yourself power in the future by doing this. Mao Ceremony is completely just take units that would cost you 1 power to summon, turn them into 1 power, and then you can resummon them if you choose, or you can wait to use on something like Cannibalism where you might get them for free. If at the end of the round you still have the power left and you haven't summoned all of your cultists because things didn't quite go the way you hoped, well, then you just summon them and you're back to where you were. Obviously the negative there is that you might end up in a scenario where your cultists show up in a battlefield that you end up getting them captured or something. But as long as you have Ithaca out, which Ithaca says that via Ferrex, while Ithaca is in play, your cultists cannot be captured by monsters or terrors, and they're still vulnerable to enemy great old ones. So your cultists, more so than other people's cultists, can afford to be out and about on the battlefield. So I think Mao Ceremony is a great spellbook for you. Would I always get it? I don't know. If you think you're going to be in a lot of combat, I would consider Mao Ceremony. All right, Shriveling. Shriveling is another nice spellbook for from the Azathoth expansion for Windwalker. What it says is select an enemy monster or cultist in the battle. That unit is eliminated and the owner receives power equal to the unit's cost. So what I like about Shriveling is you combine it with Howl. These are both pre-battles, by the way. Before battle, if any Wendigo are present, you may force the enemy to retreat one unit of their choice out of the area to an adjacent area. This is not a pain. The unit may be moved to an area containing your units. So the short of it is, you can make it very troublesome for people to try to attack you. If they attack with two people, one of them gets unsummoned, one of them gets, assuming you have Wendigo, one of them gets sent back to the neighboring lands, and they try to come again, but now they're one unit short, so you just shrivel them. Or you howl them forever, so they basically can't attack that Wendigo at that point. Alright, would I take shriveling though? That's kind of the more important part, and I would. After I go through all the spell books, we're going to talk about what can we give up, and then that's where you have to kind of make a tough choice. Umra at Tawil. So this spell book says gates cost you 1 less power to create. If you were to take it, perhaps first turn, and so what you could do is, you could just choose to take the spell book, give up the Elder Science. You're going to get a bunch of them anyways. Give up the Elder Science, take Umar at Tawil. Now your gates cost 2 less. Now move 2 of your cultists out. That's 2 power. And then have them each create a gate. That's 4 power. So that's 6 power total. You still have 2 power left, which you can use Hibernate on. And that's it. I mean, you're going to start next turn, 3 gates, and you're going to have hopefully all your cultists. If somebody chooses to attack you, you'd have 2 power to kind of defend yourself with. And yeah, I mean, that's Umra at Tawil. It can make a lot of sense for a defensive faction that you, unlike, say, like Black Goat, you expect to steal gates. Windwalker, as powerful as their military is, you probably would prefer to defensively say, hey, you don't want to attack me. And with that, Umra Tawil helps you get up to your 4 gates. You only need 4 gates to win the game, guys. I mean, 4 gates, do Rituals of Annihilation a couple times, and have your 2 Great Old Ones out. Windwalker, you're just going to win. That's it. That's, 4 gates. Just hold 4 gates, 3 turns or so, and you're going to have enough Doom points via Elder Signs and gates that you win. So Umra Tawil, very solid choice. All right, going to go to Shriveling, Undimensioned. Action costs 2. Rearrange your units among their areas as you see fit. You may completely empty an area, but you may not move to any new areas. So on one hand, you're going to have Wendigo and possibly cultists all over the map. You're going to have a single large army using Arctic Wind. Arctic Wind says when Ithaqua uses the move action, any or all of your units in the same area can move with him for no additional cost. So all of your units can kind of just move. That's going to possibly allow you to leave units behind you, and consequentially you could have units all over the place. And so Undimensioned, you'd think kind of makes sense. I don't think so. It costs 2 power, and I just don't think it makes enough sense for this faction. You're normally supposed to be kind of defensive. I just don't think it makes sense. You don't have enough spellbooks. It's not that it wouldn't be a great spellbook. It's just you don't have enough spellbooks to justify it. So I'm going to say no on Undimensioned. Recriminations. Remove any spellbook, including this one, from your faction card and replace it with another available spellbook. if you're going to take Umar at will, taking recriminations can be nice because you do not want Umar at will towards the end of the game, even middle of the game. You don't want it anymore. The ability to create cheap gates just doesn't help you. So anybody who's going to take Umar at will, if you can, I'd recommend taking recriminations and then just replacing itself at some point in the future. All right, and stars are right. During the Doom phase, if you turn in Elder Signs for Doom points, you also immediately receive power equal to their face value. Cho-Cho, Yellow Sign, Windwalker. The factions that end up getting a lot of Elder Signs, they want stars are right. It's a very powerful combination that if you need to, towards the middle of the game, maybe you lost Ithaca, you need power for something. Suddenly, boom, stars are right. You're only going to use it a couple times, I would think. But the alternative with Windwalker, unlike all the other factions, you could potentially do a Ritual of Annihilation for 5 power and then do Stars Are Right to trade in those Elder Signs and possibly get the same or more power that the Ritual of Annihilation cost. I'm going to say big yes. I just think that you want flexibility. You want to win by Rituals of Annihilation. Unfortunately, of course, the big problem with Stars Are Right is just that if you show your hand too readily, the rest of the game, the rest of the players will turn against you. And in my games, I don't want to win secretly. Right? The last thing you want to say is everyone's just playing and they think they're having fun. Well, they are having fun. And then they're like, you're like, oh, hey guys, just so you know, I won. I'm turning in my Elder Signs. I don't like that kind of play. I like it if people are like, watch Richard. He has a lot of Elder Signs, average 1.5 points. We think he could win this turn or next turn. That makes people make rash decisions. For all they know, I only have all 1 point Elder Signs, and maybe I'm far away from winning. But they have to be rash. They have to sacrifice their long-term strategy to maybe stop me. I don't know. I like that. That's how I like to play. I like to tell people, hey, if you do that, you're opening this up for me, because I want them to make that decision because they think it's the right thing to do. They understand the risks and they think it's worth it. I don't want to win by ignorance. So actually, I don't win as many games as I used to. I try to stay true to this philosophy as much as I can. With that, Stars Are Right. They give up all of your secrets. So if you can, using it the last couple turns, when you can say, hey, come at me, bros. I've got all the things. So good luck. And maybe you can hold them all up. I mean, it's possible. Especially Windwalker more so than anybody else. So, yeah. But I liked Stars Are Right, Umar Tawil, Shriveling, and the Mouse Ceremony. And I can't possibly... I mean, you can't get rid of 4 Windwalker spellbooks. So what would I get rid of? So one, I would get rid of, let's see, Ice Age. Look at this super cool ice thing. It's awesome. It's big. It's giant. It's a glacier. I love it. But guys, most of my games, I use it once. Just once. I don't know with recriminations if I get rid of the spellbook if I lose the token. I feel like that it shouldn't do anything if you lose the spellbook. But at any rate, I would get rid of Ice Age. You can bring it back if you really want it with recriminations later on, but that gives you one spell book. And so this is assuming you're not really getting rid of a spell book in the beginning, right? You only get rid of it once your spell books fill up. So I'm assuming you have recriminations, and honestly, I would go with Stars Are Right. You could maybe do recriminations, Umar at Tawil. Okay. Then use recriminations to replace Umar at Tawil with Stars Are Right, because you're not even going to have Elder Signs until like the third turn. And then at that point, you have Umar at Tawil and recriminations, and you're full. So that's where you choose, I'm not going to take Ice Age. I'm leaving Ice Age till the end. Now you've got 2 spellbooks, which means you had to get rid of 1 more. I would say Berserker Gang as well. Okay, so it's the middle of the game. You've got recriminations, which hasn't done you much good. It did you a little bit of good because you got rid of Stars Are Right and took Amarat Tawil instead. The risk is other people could have taken Stars Are Right while you were using Umarat Tawil. It's a risk, but it's not a huge risk because the consequence is you just use one of your great spellbooks, and Windwalker spellbooks are great. Okay, middle of the game, you have not taken Berserker Gang and you have not taken Ice Age. That's where the first thing Recriminations does is get rid of maybe this is where you have to make a choice. I would choose Recriminations to get rid of itself and take Berserker Gang and just never take Ice Age. However, if combat wasn't happening, because combat's not going to happen more after you get Berserker Gang. So if combat's not happening, it may be better off using Ice Age to just sort of discourage things from happening. Yeah, that's what I kind of think. As opposed to Berserker Gang, where combat has to happen or you don't do any good with it. So that's it. End of the game. I would expect most players to end up with Stars Are Right, not have Ice Age. Or vice versa, have Berserker Gang, not have Berserker Gang, but have Ice Age. Okay, so you've done the spellbook thing. Hopefully you got a good one before somebody else did. It's a risk. Luckily, you basically have first choice if you choose via you're taking the spellbook at any time power. Let's talk about the neutral monsters. So, Elder Things. These are your bane. These are the worst for you. I think more so than any other faction. Because the last thing you want is them to come in and take away the immortality of Rentegath. To a lesser extent, using the Elder Things to take away Ferox. Ferox is the ability of Ithaca to protect cultists from being captured. So you have, if somebody uses an Elder Thing against you and just puts it in the same space, you have to leave or you have to attack. Meanwhile, they can immediately capture cultists that maybe you thought were safe. So Elder Things, not your friends. So you may have to take this unit that probably won't do you much good. It's a good defensive unit against Cthulhu. It's a decent unit against, I don't know, guys. Hester. It's a good unit against Hester. For the most part, Elder Things just aren't great. They're just randomly good in like 1 or 2 situations per game. Except against Rentegath, especially Crawling Chaos. I would probably let people take Elder Things because it's not so bad to summon Rentegath. It's only 6 power. He's kind of cheap. I would consider letting him be at risk unless Nyarlathotep was out. If Nyarlathotep was out, then that's a bad combination. They both fly in, and now they Harbinger and kill Rentegath. Normally, when there is a Nyarlathotep out and Windwalker, I'm constantly telling the Crawling Chaos player, hey, you probably don't want to look at my units too closely because, you got Cthulhu over here. Might want to eat him because it's going to be a lot better than my immortal units. Yeah. I don't know. I'm always afraid of Nyarlathotep. I think everybody's afraid of Nyarlathotep. Nobody likes his 1,000 forms power. And the last thing anybody wants is him to go around trying to assassinate your great old ones. Especially if there's not a yellow sign player to just smack him down. Because that's what Hester is good for. Yeah. Okay. Elder things. If there's a Crawling Chaos player, take him first. Otherwise, you could choose to let him go. It's up to you. Dimensional Shambler. So, one of the weaknesses of Windwalker is that they kind of sprawl towards the other gate because nobody else typically will build a gate, and you have to have one before you can summon Ithaca. Before you can have your one of your 6 spellbooks. So one of the problems with Windwalker is that typically you would end up sprawling north, maybe summoning some extra gates. Because you're trying ultimately to get a gate up here, right? So, I can't quite see, guys, but as you're trying to get a gate in the other ocean, you're gonna typically struggle to hold on to more than 3 gates. And ideally you need the 4 gates or 5. I mean, 5 would be awesome, but it's just hard. You don't have enough units to properly defend that many gates. So what you're going to want to do, if you can, is use something like the Dimensional Shambler. 2 Doom Points gives you a 2 combat monster right off the bat. So that didn't cost you any power. And then after that, it's 2 power for 2 combat. That's pretty nice. The Wendigo are 1 power, which for 1 die. Dimensional Shambler is 2 for 2. But the nice thing about it is that, like so many things with Windwalker, they're deterrents. You don't really want to use them. You want to summon them, leave them on your board, and then after you feel like you're ready to attack, then you sweep in, gang up on Nyarlathotep. Or, obviously the reverse, Rentegath is out just, having a little party down in South America. Nyarlathotep shows up, maybe with elder things. And you're like, well, okay, but now I've got a bunch of my buddies. So that's the primary benefit of Dimensional Shambler, and it's a benefit for everybody. But because you don't have a lot of you don't have a lot of mid-tier units that can just soak up wounds, having a bunch of Dimensional Shamblers, it's a powerful choice. I would, out of all the Azathoth monsters, I would try to take the Dimensional Shamblers most of the time. If they're gonna die over something else you control, even better, because then you get to resummon them. The worst thing is if they end up sitting out on the board and then they're just a random 2 combat monster that just sits there, doesn't have any powers, doesn't do anything. but better that your Wendigo die so you can resummon them using cannibalism. That's the short of it. Star vampires. Okay. Just a reminder of how star vampires work. It's a cost 2, right? It's 2 doom for a monster that costs 2 power, has a 1 combat die. So already it's a weaker monster than shamblers, but it has vampirism. As a battle action, if it rolls each kill, it drains 1 doom point from the enemies, and if you roll a pain, then it drains power. So they have to have the power for you to drain it, of course. I don't think so. Not for this faction. If you can use something like Opener of the Way where you can re-roll their dice, that could make a lot more sense. Opener of the Way with Star Vampire, you re-roll, it's a good combination. With Windwalker, you don't want to be in that many combats anyways, and you've already got a source of power through Hibernate, assuming there's other great old ones out there. And I just don't think Star Vampires really add much to your strategy. I just don't think they're good. Servitor of the Outer Gods. So the question with Servitor of the Outer Gods mostly is not how much do they help your faction, because you don't get the card, but how much do they hurt your faction? And the answer is they hurt you. They hurt the Windwalker faction about average. So Servitor of the Outer Gods, it just isn't going to hurt you in the same way that it might hurt, say, Crawling Chaos, or one of the other factions, say, I was going to say Cthulhu, but Cthulhu has devolved. So you're not going to be totally locked down by Servitor of the Outer Gods. And on the other hand, you're not going to be summoning any Nob case until you have all of the servitors out. So you don't want them. I would always tend to want to summon servitors first if they are available, just so that I don't get them. But it's not totally like a lost cause if you do have to summon them. However, you are a little bit power strapped, so yeah, it sucks just about as much as almost anybody else. Sleepers may be the least affected by Servitors of the Outer Gods, because yeah, they get to keep summoning units for free, no matter how much they cost. Opener of the Way also doesn't care too much about them. So yeah, as always, if you get 2 Doom points first, which you could if you got Umar at Tawil and summon 2 gates, you'd have 3 Doom points second turn. I would consider Servitor of the Outer Gods. Also, though, I would consider just saying, hey, let's not play with Servitor of the Outer Gods because it's kind of an unfun unit. Sadly, I think they're fun, happy party guys, but maybe don't play with them unless you're really looking to add some tough challenges to the game. All right, so the last great old one. All right, the last unit thing, optional rule in Azathoth. Azathoth himself. So, how to awaken Azathoth? He costs, you have to have 8 power. You have to roll a die, and then it's going to cost you anywhere from 3 to 8 power. And then all enemies get to choose a number between 1 and 6. That's how much power they get. It's also how much combat dice you get. And I say yes. It also lets you more reliably hold on to more gates, more so probably than just having, say, dimensional shamblers. Azathoth's a lot bigger, and he doesn't die right away. So people are going to hesitate to attack him because everybody's going to want Azathoth to die, but nobody's going to want to weaken themselves trying to kill him. Azathoth combined with Ron Tegoth, man, that's just sick. There's something wrong if they're letting you do this. So if they let you, do it. And every other independent Great Old One you can. So with that, I've tried to leave little kind of kernels of strategies throughout this video. If I missed something, please comment below. I have loved some of the opening strategies people have posted on some of the previous videos. So if you have a play-by-play turn one, just like I was saying, like turn one, get a spell book, get Recurvinations to lock it in. Now you own it. Or Umarat Tawil, so that you can have your 2 more gates for 2 cost each. And then just lay it out. Post down below, share the love, and till next time, guys, I appreciate y'all. We're almost at 600 subscribers. Happy fun YouTube stuff happens at 1,000. So if you can help give me a subscribe, I would appreciate it. And it'll help keep the videos coming. And yeah, bye guys.